What's up, guys? Let's talk about troubleshooting your controllers, Bluetooth controllers. So I have a pair of these guys, and sometimes if you notice that your controllers, you turn them on and nothing happens, even though they're powered on, it's ideal to just reconfigure them, and I can show you how to do that. But you do need a keyboard, because once the controllers are not connected, obviously you can't navigate through the system. So I have one of these USB controllers. You can use any standard USB controller. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. Just plug it into the side where the USB is, and it will recognize it. So to navigate with the actual keyboard, you have your arrow keys on your keyboard, and the two buttons that you need to be aware of to navigate within the system are the A and S button. The A button gets you into the option, the S button takes you out. So, and also the enter button, sorry. And the enter button, when you're in this menu or in this view, will populate the system settings, the main menu. And where we want to go to configure the controllers is the controller settings. So I'm going to hit the A button, and that will take me inside that menu. And first thing I want to do is forget Bluetooth controllers. And once it's done that, the next thing I want to do is before we actually pair the controller, you want to turn on the first controller, or the controller if you just have one, and make sure it's on. And with these ones, I'm going to hold down the power button for about a second, and it's going to turn blue. Now it's going to blink blue, indicating to me that it's not connected to anything and it's looking for a connection. So let's go ahead and push A on pair a Bluetooth controller. It's going to say working. Let me try to focus in on that for you guys. It's going to say it's working, and this guy is still blinking blue. So right now the system is looking for any Bluetooth devices that are out there, and there's the first one. So the 8-bit do Nest 30 Pro, that's this controller here. I'm going to push the A button on that, and it's going to say working once more. And once it's connected, this controller should go a solid blue. And there you go. And the option or the menu will say it's controller paired. Now, just note with these controllers, I believe there's a minute or 2-minute limit for it to be in like pair mode. So just keep that in mind when you're trying to pair, to basically turn on the controller right before you hit pair a Bluetooth controller. So I'm going to hit the B button, and then the B button once more to get out. So now we can actually use this controller to navigate within the system. But after you pair a controller, it's ideal that you actually configure your controller to ensure that your buttons are all set properly. So once you go to configure a controller, you can hit the B button to get in, and it's going to tell you are going to configure blah blah blah. I'm going to hit the OK button by hitting B, and now it's saying it's detected one gamepad. That is true because we just paired the one gamepad. Now to actually configure it, let's hold down the B button, and once you hold it down, wait until this screen pops up, and then you can now go through the motions. So be careful when you do this, because any button you push now, it will register it as that button. So for the up button, we want it to be the up D-pad, and there are an icon to indicate which one it is. So I want to do the down, left, right. Now the joy 1 up is this guy here. That's the joy 1 up that I want. So I want to push up. Joy 1 left, I want to hit left on that, and then joy 2 up, joy 2 left. And then here you'll notice that the icons indicate what it's preferred to be. So A is that, B is this, X is that, and then Y is that. Start, select. Now that says L, which is page up, which is this button here. Page down, which is R, which is that button there, L2, which is that button there, R2, which is that button there. L3 is actually the button press on the analog stick. So I find it to be easy if I kind of hold it like that and I press down, because it is, you can kind of move it. So I'm going to do that again, press down, and then once you get to the hotkey is very important, because that's the button that you need to press to get out of a game and back into the menu system. So you hold start and press the hotkey to get out. So the hotkey, you can allocate it to anything you want, but I like to have it as the power button. And once you do that, it's going to go to the OK. Once you're in the OK, you want to hit the B button to basically register it. And the input, this controller, I'd like it to be player 1 or input 1. So I'm going to have it set to that. And you'll notice that you can connect up to 5 controllers. So once that's done, I can hit close and it'll take me back to this menu. Now, I highly suggest I highly suggest that you do one controller at a time. So once you're done that controller, let's configure the second one. Okay, controller settings. So before I go to pair, I'm going to turn that on. I'm going to go to pair controller. So this is the one that I'm trying to pair with, and you'll notice that it's blinking. Sometimes if your controllers don't have the latest firmware, it may not register the name like the way we saw it before, and here's a prime example. So in this case, we can actually take a shot in the dark, and I'll leave this down. This is the one we're trying to pair. I'm going to highlight, this is the one that we've already paired, which I'm using to navigate. So I'm going to highlight one of those ones that it identified. I'm going to push B and try to pair it with that. So I'm just taking a shot in the dark. It's showing like the MAC address of the actual controller and not the controller name itself. And that happens because the controller itself doesn't have the latest firmware. I would recommend, if you guys are comfortable with it, it's actually pretty easy to do, going to the 8-Bit Do's website and downloading the firmware and updating that. It's actually really easy to do, but as you can tell, that didn't work because that controller, the one that we chose was not it. So let's see if we can kind of sneak this in here, and nope, we were too late because it had that 60-second or 120-second time limit. So now the controller is off. So what we want to do then is actually just press a button to wake it back up and then try again. So this is the one I'm using to navigate. Once I choose the second one, I'm going to press the B button, and now let's see if it will pair that. So if it doesn't pair, there's another mode that we can put this into to try to get into pairing mode. So I'm actually hoping that it fails so we can kind of go through this. So it's working away. Okay, good. So it didn't pair. So back to the controller that I'm using to navigate. I'm going to hit the B button to get out of there. So let's close this for now and get out of there. So we're back to here. So with this controller, let's force it to get into pairing mode. So I'm going to turn this off. Right, so now it's fully off. I held down the power button for about 2 seconds. I'm going to turn it back on, and then it's going to blink blue once more. But now what I'm going to do is, I apologize, it's not in focus because it's focused to my screen. I'm going to hold down that button there for about another second or so, or 2 seconds, 3 seconds, and it's going to blink rapidly. Now go back to this, and let's click on pair a Bluetooth controller. So now it's actually looking for any Bluetooth devices that are around. Hopefully it picks this up, and then we can select it to force it to connect. Okay, well, look at that. So now Notice how we have two of them. One of them is actually this controller, which is what we've already paired. So let's take a shot in the dark and choose the top one and see if that will work. So notice how it's blinking now. That's because I chose to pair the same controller. So let's choose the second one. Oh, yeah, we passed that time limit. I'm just gonna hit the button here. Let's see what happens. So now that it's blinking, we want to make sure it blinks fast. So let's hit the second button there, hold that down, and there you go. Now let's choose the second controller. And look at that, our second controller has been paired. So now I'm gonna hit the B button, and once again, let's just go down to close and hit the B button. And once again, once you pair a controller, I highly recommend configuring it. Actually, you should do it. You just have to do it once for any new controller you add. So I'm gonna hit the B button. I'm gonna hit the B button again. I'm gonna hold down the B button, and that's gonna take me to this menu. And just remember, when you do this, be careful. Don't just press any button. You want to make sure you press the one that you want it to assign it to. So up, I want it to be the D-pad, down, left, right, joy 1 up, joy 1 left, and then this is my joy 2 up, joy 2 left, and then A, B, X, Y, start, select, L1, page up, L2, sorry, R1, page down, and then L2 is that button there, R2 is that button there, and then L3 is the joy press, and then R3 is the joy press. And then once again, the hotkey is used to exit out and do some, special stuff like take screenshots, fast forward, rewind, load states, save states, all that fancy stuff. So that I usually assign it to the power button, and that's the power button there. And then once you do that, it's going to take you down to the OK. You can hit the B button to get out. Now that we've configured the second controller, I like to assign input 2 as a second controller. And you can toggle between the controllers by going left and right. If you push B, it'll tell you you have 2 controllers. So I will choose number 1. 0 was the first controller. Number 1 would be the second controller. So I chose that, and I'm going to click close. And yeah, so that's how you would troubleshoot and pairing controllers to the system. Just a couple of pointers in terms of these the colors. Blue, solid blue, or I guess a pulsing blue, a very slow pulse blue, indicates that the controller is connected to the system. The blinking blue, the one that we saw, indicates that it's not connected and it's looking for a connection. And the rapid blinking blue, that indicates that it's in pairing mode. Now, these do change into other colors, like yellow, I believe, is when you put this into like update mode to upgrade the firmware. Green indicates that it's charging, and red will tell you when the controller is low on battery. So when it is, you just plug it in with the USB cable that was included. So yeah, and that pretty much concludes that. Have a good one, guys.